program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the City of Eau Claire. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
It's 7 o'clock. I'll call the meeting of the Waterways Parks Commission to order. First item of business on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the February 27th meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as presented? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve them.
So moved.
John
Second.
and Jenny, second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are approved. New business. First item of new business is welcoming a new commission member, Jenny Mueller. Welcome. If you would like, you can introduce yourself to the commission. Tell us a little bit about yourself if you like, and how you found yourself to be with us here.
Thank you. I really enjoy nature and the natural world and letting things kind of grow and planning for the future. And I love gardening, and I love working in the park across the way in Pinehurst Park and planting and whatnot. And so I took the Master Gardener course and found out I did everything wrong. And so I've been trying to educate myself, and as I have, I find that I like to get more involved, hands-on. And then I need to learn more because I have more questions. So I just am tickled to be here, and thank you for letting me come. So.
Thank you, and again, welcome. Second item of new business is recommendation on rezoning and a site plan for the construction of a visitor center on the UWC campus located on the south side of the 100 block of Roosevelt Avenue. Okay?
University of Wisconsin Eau Claire and Ayers Associates are requesting to rezone property from R1 to public, and then for the approval of a site plan to construct a new visitor center that would be at the southwest corner of Roosevelt Avenue and Park Avenue. The property abuts Putnam Park and Little Niagara Creek to the south, thus requiring the review by the Waterways and Parks Commission. The west portion of the property is currently zoned R1. That would be rezoned to public. And then the east portion is already zoned public. The overall size of the property is about 1.3 acres. So here's Roosevelt and Park Avenue. This is the parcels right here. You can see Little Niagara kind of going through here. Roosevelt Avenue actually was vacated west of Park Avenue last year. So this is all part of the university campus here. This is shows the zoning within the area. So as I mentioned, the west portion, this portion here currently is zoned R1, and that dates back to a few years ago when there actually were some homes on that house. Those homes have been removed, and currently the property is vacant. And then the east portion right here is currently zoned public. So as I mentioned, it's kind of a two-step process. This portion would be rezoned to public, and then we're looking at a site plan that would be for the visitor center. As you'll see with the site plan, the actual portion of the visitor center will be on the north side of Niagara in this area right here. The site plan. The building elevations. The site plan shows a two-story building. The first floor footprint would be about 8,000 square feet in size. The height of the building varies slightly, with the east portion being about 30 feet in height. The west portion is 35 feet in height. The building elevations show a variety of building materials, including brick, glass, that complement the other campus buildings in the vicinity. So the top elevation, this is the north elevation, so this would be the elevation that would face what would be the front or Roosevelt. This is the south elevation that would face Little Niagara in Putnam Park. These are some artist renderings, conceptual, looking from Roosevelt, looking towards kind of the southwest. From Roosevelt looking towards the southeast. The back portion back here would be where Putnam Park and Little Niagara is located. This is looking straight east, so this would be the west side of the building. And you can see with the site plan, there's some plaza areas that are back to the kind of the southwest portion of the building, back in this area here. The third ward residential area would be back in this area here, back to the east of the building. And then there are a couple of floor plan drawings showing the configuration of the interior of the building. This is the first floor, and we won't get into that in a lot of detail, but that it has been provided for your information. And then the second floor here. This is the site plan for the building itself. The parking, there's 22 vehicles that would be provided, and that would be located to the east of the building, located right here. Currently in this area, there's a parking area that accommodates 18 stalls, and then there's a small building that's about 200 square feet in size that essentially is used by staff to monitor the visitors' parking lot. This building will be removed and the parking lot will be removed, so 18 stalls will be reconfigured into this 22 stalls area shown right here. The landscape plan shows a mixture of street trees and shrubs, as well as planting beds along the foundation of the building. There's a variety of pavement materials and textures that are proposed, and you can kind of see these are some of the pedestrian walking areas that are using the different types of pavement materials. This is the plaza area back to the southwest, again using the different kinds of materials. There are some planting beds along the building, and then planting down along this area down here as you get closer to the creek area. One thing I did want to note regarding the building and the landscaping is when referring back to the waterway guidelines, the site plan and building does a nice job with following some of the guidelines within the plan, such as for the building features. Some of the recommendations is that the building have equal facade treatments on all sides. The windows, should be windows facing the waterway. Encourage plazas and decks. In materials of the building should be wood, stone, or architectural accent materials, and low reflective glass. So a lot of the things that are recommended or identified in the waterway guidelines are incorporated into the building itself. And then the landscaping itself that I mentioned, there's provisions in the waterway guidelines regarding landscaping. This site plan does a nice job incorporating those types of landscaping along both the front and then along the back, closer to the waterway itself. Lighting for the site will include a variety of fixtures, including pole-mounted fixtures for the parking lot area here, and then some pedestrian or lower bollard type lighting that would be in the plaza areas located in this area here. There also is a decorative lighted wall that would be located in this area here along the front of the building that would be lit with internally with LED fixtures. The building itself is set back 50 feet or more from the ordinary high water mark. This line here represents the 50-foot setback from the ordinary high water mark. That's one of the guidelines or one of the standards within the Greenway guidelines. So the plan, the building does set back that far. A little bit of a plaza area is located within that setback, but those are some permeable type pavers that are used in that area, and then also some landscaping areas. The project, there also is, this line here is the 50-foot setback from the wetland area. There is a DNR requirement that there's supposed to be a 50-foot setback from all wetlands, and for the most part, the building itself meets that setback. The one area is over by the parking lot right here, where that 50-foot, the parking lot goes a little bit into that 50-foot setback for the wetland. As part of the project, they're working with the DNR to get a waiver on that setback for the parking lot, the existing parking lot is further into that setback than this one, so actually with this new one, they're pushing it back, so actually it's less of encroachment than it is right now. As with previous applications, with the commission, the focus should be on the comprehensive plan and then the waterway guidelines. The comprehensive plan and the third ward neighborhood plan both show this area as part of within the campus boundary, so it is consistent with both of those documents. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning and the site plan as they pertain to the waterway guidelines with the one condition or subject to the DNR approval of that wetland waiver. This will be reviewed by the Plan Commission next Monday on April 1st and then by the Council on April 8th. So with that, if you have any questions, and then there are representatives from AIRS and from the university here.
Anyone have any questions for Pat at this moment? Kirk?
There's another dashed line that looks like it lays right on the north border of Little Niagara there.
Right here?
Not that one, just it's a long, right there. What is that?
We'll have someone from one of the applicants
Okay.
explain that.
So, just, I think they did a nice job. Obviously, somebody put a lot of effort into it. The building materials are attractive and fits in with the character of the campus and so on, so I have no problem with that. The reason we're looking at it is that it borders Little Niagara, and I'm surprised we didn't get an artist's concept view, the color view as it would look from Little Niagara. We saw the front sides, but not the back side. Not the south side.
Yeah, we did have.
We saw the drawing, the
Yeah.
elevation. But
Now, there was a building elevation of.
right, I saw the elevation, but I didn't see a color artist
No.
rendition.
But this does show the different types of landscaping, different kinds of building materials,
Right.
and landscaping materials that are being used back in that area. So this meets our requirements in terms of.
I'm sure it does. I'm sure it's just fine. But in my mind, when I looked at that black and white line drawing of that south elevation, it looked kind of plain, and I was hoping to see an artist's rendition of it.
Susan?
I had the same reaction. I felt like all the huge windows on the fronts and the ends, but the part that actually looks at the waterways are private offices. And that facade, the waterways plan is rather specific about the part that's parallel to the waterway not appearing to be just a long blank wall.
Well, Pat, did you say that they have similar facades on all sides? Through your,
Let me go back to
I like to something about having similar on all sides.
No.
They do have the brick facade, same as on the front side of the building, is on the back side of the building.
No, it's a lot different.
But based on the standards, there are a number of windows along on the back facade. And you have this area that's on the west end that's much more glass, which would be this area right here. So if you're looking back along from the waterways, this whole open area here basically fronts or is open to that back area. So I guess, as I mentioned, our feeling is it clearly meets the guidelines.
Eric?
Can you go back to the one that had the drawing, just black and white? I'm sorry, the one we were at with topography. Yeah, that one.
This one.
Oh, okay.
I was just wondering about the DNR, if is there a paper over there, within 50 feet of because that pavement over here, like that little circle area
Right here?
with the black dot and all those, yeah. Would that need to have some type of waiver tool?
For the city standards, the city standards is that the building should be at least 50 feet from the ordinary high water mark. It's acceptable to have these plaza areas within that area.
Isn't that what they're asking, is for a variance on that 50-foot setback to put that, the garden areas there?
It's my understanding it's for the parking lot area back here.
That's for the DNR to decide.
Right.
Yeah.
But for our commission, I think we're deciding on this, on the left side there, the garden areas. There is landscaping and development being done inside the 50-foot setback.
And that's acceptable. The 50-foot setback is for the building. You can have the landscaping within that 50-foot setback.
Tom?
The one thing that I really see as an advantage or an improvement is that there's access to the creek. In other words, there's seating and ability to sit by the creek and do whatever. Where now that land isn't accessible or people don't use it as in that form. So by building that plaza to the would be to the west and to the south, I think that'll really be a nice area and a nice enhancement to the creek for people to enjoy the creek. One of the things that I've always felt is that UW Player, when I was a student there, didn't really use and realize the value that they had in terms of that creek running through. They're doing a much better job now in the latest buildings and renovations that have occurred at the university.
Ron?
What does that dotted line to the south represent on the creek? Right there, yeah, what is that?
Again, we'll have someone from here.
That white dash line? Which specific line are you
It
talking
says
Right
about?
where the hand is located right now, that is.
Wetland boundary?
That's just a contour line, but it's where the creek is flowing. I mean, it's the creek edge.
Well, I think the north side is flush, the north side of the creek, I think it's flush with the heavy dotted line, but then you have that smaller dotted line perhaps representing the south. Well, is that the case?
The creek is right here.
Yeah, so the creek would have a dotted line on the farther to the right of where the hand is, and then, but then it gets hidden by the dark dotted line. So then up on the left side, that's the south boundary of the creek, I think.
I think it's a contour line.
What's the edge of the creek, I think.
The straight line
The
is
key
that.
here indicates wetland boundary for the short dashed line.
So this one right here.
Yeah.
So from the wetland boundary, this is the 50-foot distance right here.
Are there more questions for Pat? If not, I was going to invite, okay.
I think what a lot of people are mentioning here is what I'm noticing. And when I first looked at this, I see that the building is completely parallel to the street above it, but askew to the creek below it. And therefore, in the planning of this building, does not pay much attention to the creek, or not as much as the road, even though the creek was there before the road and will be there long after the road. And I really don't know why they feel the need to have a front yard for the building. It could be beautiful, I don't know. But you could just as easily have moved the building closer to the road and given more space to the creek. And for all that is going on here, and for our guidelines that we go by, I don't see any of our best managed practices slowing down the runoff from either the parking lot or the plaza or the building. And pretty much everything's going right into the creek. We don't, even across the road is two academic buildings which have a rain garden between them. So I don't see any rain garden in front of the creek here. And the existing parking lot there has a storm drain at the south edge of it that I'm sure flows straight into the creek. So I don't know if that storm drain is going to be existing or replaced or something, but there should be something that slows down the runoff from the construction area into the creek. And that piece of property there, even though the paper described it as a lawn area, that has been a wasteland for a couple of years now. First, the houses were torn down there, and then the street was torn up, and all the asphalt was piled up on that piece of property. So I don't even know if that's, there's nothing there, but there's asphalt debris right now, and there's no sediment control into the creek. So I really don't think any attention has been paid by the architect to the creek. And I would like to see some kind of a rain garden or berm or something to slow down the runoff, and perhaps, some erosion control during the construction project at least.
The city engineering will be reviewing the drainage calculations for the project, and they'll be reviewing those kinds of things. For during construction erosion control, that's a requirement of the city and the state, and then that'll be followed.
I hear your comments, and I saw that in the proposal here, but I don't have a lot of confidence in it. And I think there should be something drawn on the paper and presented showing that where the runoff from that parking lot is going, and the drainage from the rooftop of the building.
Kirk?
Is there any pedestrian connection between the parking lot and the little patio plaza area on the creek side of the building?
It's not my understanding that there would be along the front and then over the side here.
Just along the front, but not on the creek side?
Not along this area here, no, that's my understanding.
How are they to access the other circled areas that would maybe be more?
I think you can ask the applicant.
Actually, if there are no more questions for Pat, perhaps there's a lot of questions I think maybe the applicant could. So is there anyone from Ayers or the university that want to give us some information?
Technical questions, you guys.
Okay.
If you, and you go up to the podium if you like and introduce yourself, please.
Lisa Fleming, I'm with Ayers Associates. I'm standing in for Angie Goodwin tonight. So,
There have been a few questions kind of, so if you have any answers.
you want me to just answer them then?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, well, the stormwater is being managed per the DNR and the city regulations. And it will be slowed down and it will be filtered before it reaches Niagara Creek. And we also have a biofiltration sediment area that's going to be incorporated. So it'll meet the city's requirements of 40% TSS, which is total suspended solid runoffs. Roof water is considered clean water if it doesn't pass over paved surface. Roof water is considered clean water by both the city and the DNR. The access to those little areas that you talked about will be from the parking lot through and around here. There won't be a path along here.
Thank you. Were there other questions for Lisa?
Is the topography like right there on the edge of the building? I mean, do you know, is it
This?
like slanted or is it flat or?
Well, I would assume, I don't have a definite answer what that is. Travis, do you know what that material is?
I know that it remains relatively flat, just separate away
From
from
the
the building
building.
for the first 5-6 feet, and then obviously grade down more aggressively as it gets towards the creek.
Susan?
Well, I was just wondering if you would comment, it does seem that the design and the placement on the interior, which you see on the outside, of all the individual offices right next to where there could be windows or public access, could you, I think of your other university designs as more sensitive to the environment itself, so maybe you can talk a little bit about how those, to me, there's a distinct difference between the south facade and all the other facades. And then yet on the south side is where the waterway is.
architect, could you bring up the image from the two?
Yeah, could you answer that, Travis? I'm not the architect, I did the site
Stand
work.
up front. I mean, obviously, the project from the start posed an interesting question. In fact, this building has no backside. We face Roosevelt, we face the park, we face, we have the parking lot off the east side, and we do face Niagara, right? Obviously, the programming, because we're parking off the side and, pedestrian access is off Roosevelt, we do have, obviously, a natural sort of meeting point for people to come into the building. So putting the offices, obviously, was an early decision that putting them on the roadside probably wouldn't work the best for what the university's trying to get at, is provide a nice welcoming spot as you enter versus having to go further back into the building. So we did consider quite a few options, trying to figure out how we work Niagara into this. Obviously, it looks like, you do say the back, looks like the back of the building. We don't have all the aluminum panels we're using on the other sides. That's correct, maybe that's jazzing up the other sides more than this side. However, that presentation room, I guess it's lower sketch on your left, that does look out to Niagara as well with that plaza. I mean, there was also some discussion of, the workers that are in this space, they get to enjoy the view. Granted, the public doesn't come in to the building and really see Niagara until they get to this presentation space up there on the second floor. But they are, encouraged to go out, walk around, hence the plaza, to experience, I guess, that environment.
Is the presentation space generally open, or is it like an auditorium?
Generally open.
The biggest thing, the presentation space for, we have alumni and admissions in this building. That presentation space is going to serve both of those. It'll serve larger groups. They have admissions is on the first floor, and so they have larger groups come in to tour the university. They will take them up to that larger presentation space. That space is also planned to be used for alumni events and a few other maybe after-hour events. So as far as remaining open, I guess maybe that'd be more of a university question. If somebody in the public wants to come up, walk into that space, see the view. If it's not being used, perhaps Mike can answer that.
So I'm Mike Rindo, I'm the Assistant Chancellor for Facilities and University Relations at UW Eau Claire. I think they've done a nice job outlining it. We are trying to maximize Little Niagara, even though a lot of the views are from private offices in the building. The plaza is to try and have porosity from Roosevelt down to Little Niagara, and then when people gather prior to tours and after tours, they'll be able to have overlooks of Little Niagara. There'll be areas where they'll be able to come down and actually access the creek. And I think the presentation room is going to be $1 million view. It's going to be one of the best views on campus, both into the campus and down to Little Niagara. I appreciate Mr. Fiedler's comments about what the university's been doing to try and really maximize Little Niagara through the campus. In the past, you'll recall the old Davies Center abutted right up to it, and it really became more of an overgrown type ditch than it was a really beautiful asset, which we believe it is now. You may also recall that when we did the new Davies Center, we actually had one of the top DNR stream reclamation specialists come in and do a real reclamation of Little Niagara all the way through the campus, putting in some plunging pools, opening it up, and we're working really hard to make sure that it's not overgrown anymore. That would be the intent here as well. So it would be much more accessible to the public, much more viewed by the public, and the folks in these offices are really going to enjoy the view. So, but in terms of the front of the building, I think they hit it right on the head. When we have visitors come in, they'll come in and they'll traverse the building down Roosevelt to access the admissions presentation rooms. And so that's why we have the main corridor on the front and not on the back of the building.
Any other questions for Mike or Lisa or Travis? Susan?
I would suggest maybe for the other presentations, the plan commission and the city, it would be good to have an elevation like you had for the other three. And the fact that it's not there makes it seem as though it's being underplayed.
We can look into that. There's, whenever you do full renderings, there's a cost associated with that. But we can look at whether AIRS would be able to provide us that rendering from that view as well.
Any other questions for the applicants? Jenny?
Just a couple of questions about during construction, what are your thoughts about State Street being under construction, Roosevelt now being utilized with construction trucks and so forth, construction workers coming back and forth there, and then access to the Phillips and nursing parking lots?
So the Garfield Avenue redevelopment project, which we've had under construction over the past 2 years on campus, is substantially finished. That's why those houses came down and why there was a temporary roadway put in there as we were doing the improvements underneath Roosevelt Avenue, which included utility replacement, just as it did on Garfield Avenue. That's substantially complete, so we don't anticipate a lot of truck traffic on Roosevelt going back into the Phillips and Davies lot. Same thing along Garfield Avenue, although there will be some equipment in there this summer to do repairs to some of the concrete that was cracked during, either through just the way that it was installed or from some heavy equipment being on it. So we'll have some of that during the course of this year. But Roosevelt, it will be dug up to connect steam and condensate from the Phillips Science Hall. So we'll actually have to take a segment of that road out as we're constructing this, but then that will be patched over during this process.
Kirk?
Mike, at the start of the presentation, you had showed us the yellow line drawing of the rezoning, which shows land on both sides of the creek. Is anything planned for the south side of the creek?
No. Those were deep lots when they were houses, and so they did have lawn back in there. We intend to maintain that, but we're not talking about any structures down there at all.
This doesn't have to do with the creek, but I'm looking at the floor plan here. We've got 22 office spaces, 2 reception areas, and a meeting space that looks like it could hold about 50 people. And we have 22 parking spaces. So I don't know where all these people are gonna park, but I imagine it's gonna be in front of my house, since I live on Roosevelt too. And I understand that the office spaces are not new hires, they're coming over from Schofield. But I just don't know where all these people are gonna park. I mean, the university's pretty limited with parking anyway.
Well, I think you answered your own question, which is that these are not new staff. Those staff typically are parking now in Phillips, Davies, Hibbard, HSS, Water Street, and they're coming to Schofield from that area. They do not park in the current visitors lot.
But you're gonna be welcoming visitors,
Which we
50 at a time at least.
Well, not at least 50 at a time. Typically, we have much smaller groups than that, but we can't accommodate that many. We do that currently on campus in the admissions office. Oftentimes, if we have larger groups, they receive parking permits to park in the HSS lot and come across the river. We have reserved spots in front of Davies right now for future Blue Gold. And we're also looking at using the Schneider lot, which is directly across from this and adjacent to Schneider Hall, for some of that parking.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions?
Just a comment, in fact, that we really want people to utilize that outdoor area as a place to lounge and recreate and the like. And the bottom rendering, the back side of the building, looks like it's the back of a building. And yet, you said that it's really a building that has no back. And so I just think that it needs to be inviting, and I don't know how that is done, but as you lay out the landscaping, lay out the benches and tables, and it needs to be inviting, and people need to feel like this is a place where we can be, versus is it okay to be on the backside of a building? You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That we want to make it open and inviting, at least I would think that would be your intent. So.
And I think you can see that somewhat in here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is the intent, is to create areas for people to sit, to gather, to be able to overlook the creek, which, you know, is taking advantage of the creek. Once you start getting into the elevation changes, it gets steep there, And so we probably don't want a lot of people accessing down behind there in order to, you know, right behind the building because of the grade change.
Meredith?
I guess, you know, just a wonder would be, is the reason you don't have a sidewalk on the back side of the building, because of the offices and you don't want to like encroach on people's privacy, or?
It's the elevation change. So you either have to put a sidewalk in the front or you have to put a sidewalk in the back.
Gotcha.
But there's really not sufficient space to be able to do both. We have to have sidewalks of sufficient width so we can get our snow removal equipment up and down it easily. We want to have some separation from Roosevelt Avenue so that we don't have, you know, conflicts between pedestrians and motorists that are coming in and out of there. That's why you can see we've got a wider crosswalk here, although it probably won't look like this in the end. It's going to be a wide striped sidewalk. But, you know, we either bollards or large planters here to ensure that we don't have pedestrian and vehicular conflicts. But that's one of the reasons why we're doing it along the front of the building, is we just don't have sufficient space to be able to go all the way around the perimeter.
Are there any further questions? Susan?
What was your interaction with the residents of the neighborhood that's just beyond? How were they informed about the project and what were their reactions?
Our planning team met with members of the Third Ward Neighborhood Association to review the plans. And they were pleased with the plans. You may recall that our master plan intent originally showed that we would have a small residence hall there. There were some objections from the neighborhood to that. We revisited the master plan after Chancellor Schmidt came to campus, and we came up with this is the next highest use of that land. So, you know, it's a very small parcel, so it doesn't have a lot of carrying capacity. This fits on there. It's only about a 16,000 square foot building, a little north of that. And you know, the way that it's angled, we think really takes advantage, especially from the presentation or the views to Little Niagara. And then this comes right down the middle of the campus mall when you're looking out at it, and also incorporates the views of the creek and the campus central mall.
As part of the process, we are sending out notices to the property owners within the vicinity of the plan commission hearing and the council hearing. So the immediate neighborhood is aware of it also.
Is there an elevator in this building? I couldn't figure out where it was.
Yes, there is. Pat, if you want to pull up the floor plans with your show what it is. It's right here.
The box, okay.
Mhm.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much for answering all the questions here tonight.
Welcome.
Before I open it up to any further discussion, I would like to remind that it's stated here that the review of the commission should focus on the review in relation to the parks plan and the city guidelines of the greenway. So that being said, is there any further discussion amongst the members of the commission on this plan? Okay, seeing none, Tom? Oh yes, I would take a motion to approve the rezoning and site plan as presented.
I'll move.
Meredith, is there a second?
I'll second.
Jenny? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the rezoning is approved. Third item of new business tonight is recommendation to rename the special area along 4th Street to Veterans Tribute Park.
Before you tonight, and I'm sitting in for Jeff, he's on vacation, he'll be back on Monday, but before you tonight, what you have is a request by the Veterans Association to name the 4th Street special area, which is what its designation is now, to Veterans Tribute Park, and this is the space south of our campus onto Madison Street where the Veterans Tribute Walk is designated to begin construction actually this year. We included the park naming policy park and facility naming policy for your review. This policy was adopted by the Waterway and Park Commission back in 2006. This doesn't come up all that often, but the process is as follows. The Veterans Association submitted this request in writing to our director. He's reviewed it, and in his opinion, they have met the criteria to move this onto your agenda tonight. And what your objective would be tonight would be to please go ahead and approve this, and this proposal goes into a 60-day public comment period, and it'll come back to you after 60 days for your review, and then on to City Council for final recommendation, or reject the proposal as it is at this meeting tonight. And I mean, I guess we could, if you all had a chance to review the policy, if you have any specific questions on the policy, I'll be happy to field those for you, but ultimately that's what we're looking for is a motion to move forward into the next phase of the policy, or
Any questions for Todd regarding the renaming, Susan?
Would it apply to the whole area, including the part with the community gardens and so forth?
Well, the community gardens will still be identified as the Forest Street Gardens. But this green space between the end of our building and Madison Street would be the Veterans Tribute Park. The community gardens would be a community garden within Veterans Tribute Park, I would suspect. Right now, it's green space or designated as a special area.
I mean, is there an exact boundary for the area that will be receiving this name?
Yes, it's Forest Street on the east, the river on the west, Madison Street on the south, and back side, the south side of this building.
So it's all from Madison Street all the way down to
Yes,
right
sir.
here? Okay.
And which is essentially where, the Veterans Tribute Wall begins on the north end and continues all the way to the Madison Street.
So it would include the gardens too?
I would assume so.
The nature.
Jenny?
Part of the process for new facilities or parks includes strong encouragement to include the request for expectations for signage in the park or facility. Are there any suggested or suggested ideas that the folks with the Veterans Tribute Park have thought about? Specific signs? I know we had them at this commission a number of months ago, but I don't remember about signage.
The signage with their proposal is actually minimized. There'll be a lot of QR coding on their memorials or their spaces that they're going to recognize a conflict. There'll be a lot of QR codes for that. There certainly isn't. They're not advocating a lot of signage. But to answer your question more directly, as this would be, if this were to be renamed, we have a signage master plan that there's guidelines and standards that we have in that signage master plan that would be followed. We have monument signs, for example, at community parks like Owen Park, and then as we scale down to our neighborhood centers, we get more into a wayfinding type of sign, and those materials are all called out already. We had that signage master plan done some years back now, and we're implementing it as funds become available. And obviously, this particular park, there's not a design yet for the sign that would say Veterans Tribute Park, but that design would come forward eventually and come to your be on one of your future agendas.
It'd be similar to like what was recently installed over Owen Park.
Yeah,
Small scale monuments.
The monument type signs made with Corten steel and masonry, stone. Familiar little signs.
Thank you.
Tom?
I just need a clarification. So the Veterans Memorial, which we heard about at our last meeting, will be down going down the blocks by Forest Street. But by this name, then does that mean that we've taken this whole area and made it a city park versus a memorial? I think, do we have memorials in areas that are not city parks? I guess that's a question
Yeah, the Veterans Association is very adamant that they don't want this to be referred to as a memorial. This would be Veterans Tribute Park. It's a tribute. They've been very adamant from the start that they do not want the word memorial
All
tied
right,
to this space.
so let's say, do we have tributes then? Other tributes in the city that are not in parks? And
I believe you're plowing new ground with this. I don't believe we have.
I mean, that are not in parks?
that are not in parks. In other words, the thing I'm getting at is all of a sudden, have we created a park, like Owen Park and Carson Park and Wilson Park, have we created another park? And when the tribute was talked about and has since been further approved down the line, were we in essence also creating a park?
The space that is there now is classified as a special area. Really sort of a nebulous classification in my opinion. It was green space. There was homes that were purchased by the city some years back, and that area actually sat dormant, if you will, for a good number of years. The community gardens was the initial development in that particular space, and now Veterans Tribute. It started as a Veterans Tribute Walk, but they're looking at creating this space called the Veterans Tribute Park. I think your question about, is it a broad brush from Forest Street all the way to the river, is a good question, and that should probably be vetted somewhat. Or are they interested in more of a linear swath in all of that green space? I suspect not. I suspect that it would be designated parkland rather than a special area, and that would, in my opinion, be from Forest Street to the river's edge.
And I don't know if it makes any difference, but I just think people should know that that's what is occurring then, is that then we're calling that a park.
Right, I hear what you're saying.
The tributes within the park.
Well, it is, based on our parks plan, it is a park right now. Our parks are broken down into about 5 different classifications. And as Todd mentioned, it's in our plan right now at the park area, and the classification as a special park and open space area is how it's classified. So it's different from our community parks. It's different from our neighborhood parks. It has some kind of special uses, special unique characteristics because of the floodplain and things like that. That's why, rather than calling it a community park, we've given it the special open space park area.
Okay. So that helps. So it is a park.
Yes, thank you, Pat.
Okay.
Another special area that we have in our system is Pinehurst Farm. It's a neighborhood park, but yet it's a destination winter sports area. So that's the other one special area that I think to it that helps sort of set the stage.
So what you're being asked tonight is not classified as a park. It is a park. What you're asking is how should we name the park?
Susan?
And once the tribute is actually built, it will have to be managed much more like other community parks, because it will have two pretty involved levels of development between the gardens and the tribute, and it won't just be a special area anymore. It'll be a park.
Our standard of care that this park will need eventually will obviously increase. Right now we consider that space right now a Class 3 turf. Our Class 3 turfs are green spaces that would get mowed periodically. I suspect this area is going to need a healthy irrigation system. There's going to be an expectation that this this is elevated to a level 1 turf. We understand that the maintenance will increase, but we also have, to that end, we have an MOU with the Veterans Association that they would manage that. And the one thing that we made very clear from some of our earlier meetings with the veterans was we would like minimize the vegetation to some degree. There's a Gold Star Mothers display, which is specifically marigolds laid out in a star shape. Drip irrigation included in that, but the other bump outs where specific conflicts or wars will be interpreted. So there won't be a lot of planting with the Wall of Tears, for example. It's basically a fountain. Little vegetation. The trees lining the promenade are intended to be ornamental, flowering trees, varieties of flowering crab, and Japanese tree lilac, to try to get a bloom from early spring all the way through middle of May. That was the intent there with the trees that were specifically called out in the landscape plan. But other than the trees and the Gold Star Mothers display, that's about the only additional vegetation.
Any other questions for Todd? John?
There's not currently a name for this park, is there? Is it just called?
Oh,
Forest Street?
Forest Street.
Green
Is
space.
it just the understood name has never been designated?
Correct.
It's one of those things that, you're probably fairly familiar with the history of it, but this used to be just a series of homes that were along Forest Street, and the city purchased those homes a number of years ago with FEMA funds, and it just became kind of an open space by default, essentially. And eventually, when all the homes were purchased and we started seeing people starting to use it, we decided that we should add it to our parks system, our parks plan, and just by default, we just call it the forestry area. So trying to move on from that now and maybe give it a better name.
The use the area gets from the North Riverfront's neighborhood folks, it's park-like. We see them there often, throwing frisbee, playing coup, walking, dogs most of the time on leashes. But yeah, it's got a park feel to it already. It just isn't necessarily a park name yet. I want to circle back to the Phoenix or the Forest Street Gardens. I know that the Forest Street Community Gardens want their identity, and that certainly is intended to be preserved, as well as the veterans want to make sure that delineation is clear too. But I don't think that's going to be a conflict or any issue. Actually, the gardens they do have in their plan some really cool interpretive signs that they've made up. They're not installed yet or completed. I think it's a matter of them raising the funds. But I think that the dual purpose, as somebody's walking down that promenade, to understand, you've got veterans. I always go to the word memorial too. You have areas that recognize our country's conflicts and wars in the past. But then just on the other side of this street, if you will, there's gardens, and some of the interpretations with their signage is really cool to the average passerby. May or may not have a really good handle on what community garden is. I think it'll work out really well. And our intent would be to make sure the forestry gardens and the Veterans Park complement each other. I think that's very doable.
The Forestry Gardens are okay with the whole place being called the Veterans Tribute Park?
They will. I would assume they will have that. If they are or aren't, there's a 60-day public comment period, and that would be most appropriate for them to express those opinions.
They're aware.
Yeah.
They're aware.
I can't comment to what opinion might be, but that will circle back to this group
Okay.
if you decide to put it out there.
Susan?
Well, we have a number of parks that have different areas or facilities within them that have another name. Carson Park is full of them. So I don't know that would be terrible.
Any other questions or comments regarding this proposal? Kirk?
I just see the original memo of understanding with the city was to develop a veterans tribute trail and amenities, and then they came up with $2 million and then a formal request that we name it the way they want it, which seems right to me, Veterans Tribute Park. Personally, I think people just refer to it as Veterans Park. If it were up to me to name it, I would name it Veterans Park. But when they went to all this effort and that's the name they wanted, I think that's what we should do.
I think part of the reason, I agree, I think most people would, if this process goes forward, people will refer to it as a Veterans Park. The reasons that Veterans Tribute Park is that we have a Veterans Park right now. It's a small area of land that was donated to the city that's over by Menominee Street and Claremont Avenue. So we needed to give it a little bit official, different name.
Can we change that one, something else, then?
It's actually.
Another 60 days.
No, I didn't know it was a park until I saw it listed over there.
Well, you could rename that if you wanted, after our commission or something. But I just think it would be very cool to not name it what they formally requested that we name it.
And if there's great concern, then we'll know after 60 days that there's great concern.
I mean, the only people withstanding would be unless it's Xcel Energy, would be the gardeners, that they'd be lost in the Veterans Park. I mean, there will undoubtedly be somebody who complains, but.
Well, they'll come back to us again in 2 months' time or so.
We have met with Xcel Energy regarding softening one of the bends in the trail, if you will, when it goes around the substation. And the three folks we met with were very much on board with the plan that the Veterans Association, displayed. I can tell you that they were very complimentary to the idea, and they also kind of gave us a heads up that possibly within the next 10 years, probably more likely 5 to 6 years, the substation that you see down there in the corner of Madison Street is going to probably double in size due to the demand, and that facility is coming up short with supplying or power distribution, and they've got land to come north. That's why we talked about bending that trail around, because the trail as it's drawn in would have to be reconstructed some years down the road. That's kind of a glimpse out there with what's coming.
Susan?
Do they own that end of this property?
Yes, Susan, they do.
So really, the park can only extend to where you don't own the land anymore, right?
Right, we can go up to Wilson, or I'm sorry, even with William Street, and that's Xcel from there. If you take a look at an aerial, or Xcel owns from Madison Street, and then their substation is, and you'll often see the limo taxis or squad cars sometimes parking there because they get a cell signal. That's all Xcel. That gravel parking lot is all Xcel.
So if that happens, it takes away the parking lot that gets used during the farmer's market?
No,
No?
that's we have an agreement with Xcel that won't go away.
Okay.
It's the gravel, I don't, if you were to draw a line here through here, this is Xcel's, and I think it went up into this space right here. This is all Xcel's. This is city when we get into this green space, but this would be Xcel here. And this is out there, like what we were told is this facility will likely flip and it'll be this size.
What's that?
And where the tribute walk comes down here, this is where it'll go. We were looking at softening that corner here to make this bend and where it'll come under Madison Street. And this particular roadway into this parking lot, Susan, this is Xcel Energy's property. We had to get an agreement with them to allow that. This half of that parking lot is Xcel's. This is already city, but because we approached into that parking lot, there was agreement some years ago before we built that parking lot.
So the Veterans Tribute people, they know that this is about this planned expansion?
Oh, yeah. They actually
So-
wanted to meet with Xcel to, vet that as well.
Because they ought to know that's coming in case
Yep.
it would change their design perspective.
Well, it's still Excel property, anyways, I doubt they're ever gonna put anything there since it's Excel's in there. Again?
No, I know, but you might not want your tribute to
Oh, just
back
a
right
buffer
into,
zone,
yeah.
sure.
Right. And the way they've drawn, the way the tribute was drawn in by the architects that were used by the Veterans Association, they knew where those, they knew where the boundaries were, and they kept their design within the city property boundaries. It was just a matter of, because the trail was coming close to their property, basically wanting to have Xcel Energy's blessing on their proposal. That meeting went very well.
Thanks, Pat, for the map.
Thank you, Pat.
That
Yes.
helps a lot.
Any other comments on the proposal? Seeing none, and then just to recap, if it's approved here, 60-day public comment, and then it comes back to us, and then we go to city council.
You will, yep, the public comments will be gathered and those will be for your review. And then ultimately, that's when you will make a recommendation to move said name onto city council.
If there's no other questions or discussion, is there a motion to recommend the change of name from special area to Veterans Tribute Park? Kirk, is there a second? Ron, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes. The next item of business is the 2019 special events list.
Before you have our special events list. I had mine and I copied my agenda back to back, so thank you, Jeannie. If there's any questions on our special event list, I'll try to answer those. It's a short list, but it's mighty early. Typically, Jeannie, we'll see over 100 special events in the calendar year. I think we were somewhere like 112 last year. Our trail system, our parks are very popular. Nearly every weekend there's something happening somewhere in our system. And many of these events are run by service organizations, and a lot of revenue from those events get channeled right back into the service organizations in the community.
If you look for, I think on page 31 of the PDF. No, you're near the end, I think.
There was a bunch of stuff like the
Yeah,
Fairfax and.
I was on this special events list. If you
Yeah,
want-
I'm just saying that I think that's why it's so far. Usually
Oh.
it's further or closer to the end, but it's not.
Struggling finding it.
Yeah, it's way up, much further up, actually.
Yeah.
It's got a blue.
It's got a blue
squares.
background.
So if you want to see the blue. Not quite there.
One
There you
more.
go.
There.
All right. The Easter egg hunt, last year, Easter is later this year, but last year, if you recall, I think it was on
It snowed out.
Oh, yeah.
the 12th of April, we had a foot of snow. They got bummed out about that, but they still held their event.
Oh man, I will be so sad.
We are we're in the process of, we're just trickling up our furnaces in our concession stands, getting ready to restock. Pictures on the Galine field aren't really encouraging right now, but our football field is showing more green than white, so that's great. We'll get there. I'm hoping it's not as bad as it was a few years ago when the girls softball team was not able to have one home game. It was just such a cold, slow spring. But we'll.
So far, we have like all 50 in the forecast except for Saturday.
Yeah, we're hanging in there.
Run from the cops coming up.
The puddle jump's a very popular event. That's been around for a good number of years for us. There's a lot of people participate in that.
Okay. If there's nothing else with the special events list, we can move to the director's report.
And the director's report is attached. The forestry division, you'll be hearing more from the forestry division next month. A lot of our forestry arborists were pressed into service to plow snow this winter, but it made sense. We really exercised the community services model to its full extent this year. Our street operations were supported by forestry, parks, and utilities. They would have really burned themselves out very quickly if we wouldn't have all circled the wagons and helped out. But forestry is back to their routine. It's within a little over 2 weeks. Our first order of tree planting for spring is scheduled to arrive on April 11th. We're continuing on with our EAB management and mitigation plan. Matt Stoudemeyer, our forestry supervisor, will speak to you next month. It's real close to Arbor Day. Some of the things that we've been a Tree City USA for 40 years, which is really impressive. It's second only to the city of Sheboygan in the state of Wisconsin that have been recognized as Tree City USA. Some numbers that we've generated with our EAB management, and I don't want to steal Matt's thunder next month, but when we knew emerald ash borer was going to be a real problem, and we had a community action plan developed, we were looking at 8,900 ash trees on our city streets, quietly, without losing track of our other programs in forestry. We have pared that number down to about 4,900, and we've not lost track of our bread and butter, which is our maintenance pruning and our planting programs. Had great support from council. It's in looking back, years back, when our forestry division was the same size it was now, battled Dutch elm disease, and we lost generations of really training, pruning, and again, the bread and butter of what the forestry division does, cycle pruning. And we lost a generation of good, healthy pruning. And I was adamant that we didn't happen. And it's been challenging, but quietly we're moving along, and we've not added more staff. We've managed our budget, and we've made huge progress. And I'm really proud of that. Included is the Hobbs Ice Arena report and the Fairfax Pool report. If there are specific questions to those reports, I know they're lengthy and a lot of data to absorb, let me know, and I can make sure Chad Durkop, our aquatics manager, or Pat Newkirk, Hobbs Ice Arena facility manager, can answer those questions for you.
Are they not coming in?
What's that?
Are they not going to come in like they normally do?
With Jeff being on vacation, and wanting to get this information to you without much delay, you'll probably have a more robust agenda next month anyways. You wanted to include this out here, and also thinking that this meeting tonight with this project that you had maybe a lengthy meeting. Jeff thought that might streamline the meeting a little bit. But certainly if you have questions, just get in touch with me and I'll make sure Chad answer any questions.
Jenny?
I just have a quick question. Can you repeat to us, you said Eau Claire City Streets Department utilized parks, forestry, and what other division?
Oh, utilities?
And utilities?
And our cemeteries too.
And cemeteries.
Mhm.
And then how many people was that, roughly?
Our street department, I believe, is 37. Parks, forestry, cemetery collectively is 24. I can't speak to utilities. I'm guessing they're right about that high 30 number too, somewhere south of 40 employees.
Wow.
Even the water plant, even the wastewater treatment plant, and the water plant threw in if they were available. Those guys work shift work, but they were available too.
Thank you again.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing to watch.
And it was really, I think there's some comments on the board. This is the street staging room. There might be some social media comments that were copied for the folks that are behind the wheels. We also had residents send in pizza. One individual's 25 pizzas and 20 liters of pop as a thank you. Just yesterday, there was a big box of cookies with thank you letters from residents of the Rye Court neighborhood. Bartolome Pizza, the frozen pizza maker folks. They came in with frozen pizzas and pizza ovens and cooked for the guys at lunch some weeks ago. And it was really, you could tell they really appreciate it. 'Cause it was a tough winter. It was almost like you wanted to throw the white flag out the window and don't know what to do.
But you won't be able to see it if you did, so.
That's right. But it was, I will say this, my office is just off the front, and I don't mean to take the meeting any farther than we have to, but my office is just outside the front, office area. And phone calls on a snow day, their phones ring and ring and ring. And one lady needed her street plowed because she had to get her cat to the vet, and, the calls run the gamut. And all of a sudden, when the snow just kept piling up and piling up, those calls just sort of stopped because people realized there's just nothing we can do, and we're doing our little best. And then the calls turned into the thank you type calls. And street department crews, they'll say, they've had shovels thrown at them as they're driving by, putting that snow right back in their driveway, but it never happened once that got to a certain level where there's just everybody's struggling. So I'm really glad to see the grass starting to show.
Dale had mentioned the average time to plow was used to be 12 hours, and now it's down to 8.
Yeah, they have it dialed up precisely.
That's amazing.
Yeah, some of the snowfalls they got, they can get right down to residential plowing. And they got a good system where every route is flip-flopped after each snowfall, so every end of town's getting fair representation as far as where the plows start and end. And that's adhered to strictly. I know everybody was all in this year. It was, and then hearing the voices on the radio of the drivers, it was almost like they were in a battle, and some of their bantering back and forth on the radio was really, you could really sense the teamwork, just in some of the dialogue. That's something you want to see.
Okay. Anything else to go over here in the report, or are you done?
If there's any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them, but I think
That's good. The next item of business will be the group photo, but we'll postpone that until after the adjournment, which we're at now. So if there's a motion to adjourn, I'll take that.
So move.
Tom, a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? The meeting is adjourned.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and the City of Eau Claire. A transcript of this meeting is available for the hearing impaired. It will be available within 7 days of this telecast. Call 715-839-4912 or TDD 715-839-1689, or write Eau Claire City Clerk, P.O. Box 5148, Eau Claire, Wisconsin 54702-5148. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org.